Afternoon and welcome to our TechX live webinar. This is our last event in our promotion of our TechX Roadshow. So thank you so much for coming along. Hopefully you are joining us all over the place. So we'll let you get connected, get your audio started, and then we'll go into our session today. I'm Edward. I'm a TechX Acceleration Manager. My job is to help support startups, guide them, connect them to amazing people all throughout this program. And I'm also joined by
Mariah, I am the TechX Acceleration lead. I work alongside Edward to deliver the accelerator. So yeah, working closely with all the startups through the applications, assessments, and through the program as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. So Mariah and I are hopefully going to help you out this afternoon, take you through the process of the accelerator. So feel free to get comfortable, get joined in, get your notepads out for hopefully lots of questions, because it's an exciting afternoon because we have over £500,000 worth of funding to give away through this program. And this is your opportunity to find out how you can apply to get your slice of that on our TechX Clean Energy Accelerator program. So to get us started, if you have access to the chat, fingers crossed you do, please feel free to go down into the chat and put a little bit of information about yourself, where you've come from, maybe a little bit about your startup if you're interested to, and equally keep an eye out if you have any questions. You can also use the chat, or I believe there's a Q&A function down at the bottom as well for this webinar. At any point, if you want to ask us a question, we'll definitely leave some time at the end to go through that as well. Do you think we're ready to go, Mariah? How are you feeling?
We're ready to rumble. Looks like we've got some people online, so let's get started.
Let's get going. Excellent. So we at the TechX team work in a company called the Net Zero Technology Center, and our vision is all about finding the most exciting technologies in the world that can help us decarbonize. We know that we need to reduce our carbon emissions, and the accelerator program that we run is all about trying to do that. Our not-for-profit business is looking for the most exciting startups, and we've worked with dozens over the years. For the past 7 years, we've worked with many startups all across the world to help them develop prototypes, build their ideas, support each other, find funding, and grow their companies. And from all of those interactions, we've also learned a lot about the challenges that startups experience, particularly when building an energy tech business. So some of the areas that we know that our frustrations are rapid prototype development. Perhaps if you're building an easy consumer business, then finding prototypes is simple, but in energy tech, it's difficult. You need complex engineering, you need sophisticated manufacturing capabilities, you need lots of design and testing, and that's one of the areas that we know startups have difficulty with. Another area is access to investment and funding. It's not cheap building the future of energy, and we know that you need that seed funding to get you kick-started, but also to have the credibility and professionalism to be able to raise that future funding too. A third thing we see startups often struggle with is access to experts in their industry. Maybe they've come from a university and you've got a lot of technical experience, but you maybe don't have as much in the industry side of things. Other areas are around your brand and your commercial strategy. So you might have a great concept for the technology, but how are you going to sell it? That's one of the challenges startups often find. Making sure you get the right expert input from trusted sources, knowing these mentors, guides, advisors have experience of the sector and the industry as well. And finally, identifying real customers and their needs. It's no use building a technology if nobody wants it. And across the years, we know that these are challenges that maybe you're there today worrying about and thinking about. And we've designed our TechX program, hopefully, to target and solve some of these challenges. So if any of these ring true, let's hope that what we talk about today can help solve some of those problems.
Amazing. So if you're a startup online and you are identifying some of these challenges, TechX, we are delighted to tell you more about the accelerator. But first, we want to use that chat function to get an idea of who we've got in the room online today. So are you a startup interested in applying? Are you an ecosystem rep interested in getting involved in the accelerator, whether that be through mentorship or through our customer discovery phase? Or are you an industry expert who's also interested in supporting that piece? So use the chat and flag who you are. I see we've got two startups already that flagged. So hello, Caroline and Mark. Delighted to have you online. Let's see who else we've got. We've got one more startup. Perfect. Anybody else online want to flag what space they're falling in? Another startup. Perfect.
That's exactly what we want to see. Lots of exciting startups to work with. That's the dream. Hello, Philip. Hello, Nyani. Hello, Yulia. Welcome to the webinar today. So hopefully what we talk about, whether you're a startup in particular, that's what we'll focus on. But even if you're an industry rep or an ecosystem expert, there's lots of areas that we think that we can hopefully align. And if you know any other startups not here today, then please feel free to connect and refer them to us as well. So let's tell you a little bit more about the program and what we can offer. So Mariah's our program lead. You have the delightful job, Mariah, of curating the best expert minds to help startups and try and help solve some of those big, scary challenges. So tell us, what can TechX do for some of these startups?
Well, over the last 7 cohorts, we've developed an accelerator to hopefully solve some of those challenges. So it's an 18-week hybrid program for up to 10 startups that we support a year. And it's built up of sessions, workshops, online and in person, where we're connecting you with expert mentors, expert delivery partners, and industry experts. The accelerator is made up of 4 key modules, one focused around tech development. So identifying where your startup is with your tech development, what TRL you are, which is your technology readiness level, and how you're going to scale your technology during the accelerator and over the next few years as well. We're also focusing on your business, so making sure you're building an awesome startup behind the technology as well. So we do that through connecting you with your customers to do that customer discovery phase, and make sure that the tech you're building, somebody actually wants to buy at the end, and focusing on kind of that business model, your value proposition, pricing, and most importantly, that business storytelling piece. So how you're kind of communicating what you do. Our third module is focusing all on funding. So that's mostly focusing on investment and your investor readiness, but also looking at grant funding and other funding streams as the startup begins to grow. And finally, around the growth of your business. So making sure that you continue on an upward trajectory post TechX. So looking at what your team looks like, looking at business operations, and kind of that marketing identity piece around the startup as well. And if that doesn't sound great enough, each startup that makes it onto the accelerator also receives £50,000 worth of grant funding. So we'll maybe go into a bit more detail around what those 18 weeks look like and the format of the program.
18 weeks always sounds so intense, Mariah. So how is it going to be like? Is this really like, oh, that's months and months of my life? What does that look like when it breaks down?
So as we flagged, it's a hybrid program. So it's a mixture of kind of in-person weeks, online weeks, and self kind of taught weeks. So our first week of the accelerator is all focused on onboarding. So making sure that your startup's in the position to participate in the accelerator. So that looks like signing our pioneer agreement, which is your agreement you receive once you've been awarded a place. It's looking at what your perfect mentor looks like. So we ask you to flag your mentor requirements, and we do a bit of matching in the background. We describe it as speed dating. So you highlighting what your type on paper is, the mentors do the same, and then as we continue throughout the accelerator, we do a bit of mentor matching. And that onboarding week, we also ask you to flag your future customers. And with that, we arrange one-on-one meetings with them during our business week, during our customer discovery and validation phase. And then we go into our technology segment. So our second week of the accelerator is all around self-study and e-learning. So that's focused on identifying where your startup is. You may be experts in the tech development phase, which means that you won't need to do as much of that self-study content as well. Or you could be needing to skill up in that area. So there's e-learning content available via our TechX portal, which is our online learning environment, and you have access to that during those self-study blocks that you see throughout the accelerator to help you get up to speed for when we get into our virtual workshops week that tend to be the second week of every block. And that is bringing all of our cohort that are on the accelerator, so the 10 startup companies, onto a call very similar to this, where we're doing learning with some of our expert delivery partners around the theme. So around that technology piece, around that business piece, around that funding piece, and around that growth piece. We then go into one-to-ones. So that looks like connecting you with some of those experts that we talked about, whether that be mentors, industry experts, delivery partners, to go in a bit deeper into those key themes you've learned during our workshops, to look at what you've developed. It could be a model that you've brought together, it could be a canvas that you've completed, and give you one on one support during those one-to-one weeks. And then the final week of most blocks, it's slightly different for our final block, looks like in person weeks. So we've got a few happening in Aberdeen, one happening in London, and that's bringing the cohort all together for a full week of learning, workshops, bouncing off each other. Typically, what those days look like are 9 to 5, all in person in our learning space that we've identified for that week, connecting you with partners, but also we tend to have one major milestone event during those in person weeks as well. Perfect. And then what it tends to look like is you'll see there's a key theme. So you'll go one week where you're either in that self-study space or in that one-to-one space, then a week where you're with the TechX team, whether that be virtual or online. When we're in those kind of virtual workshop weeks, it's Monday to Thursday, 10 till 1 p.m. typically. So it's not full time. Um, but we're kind of wanting to see a commitment from the startups that they're going to be able to participate and give the Accelerator. They're all. Edward, I'll pull you in. Is there anything I've missed out?
No, it's a great mix of activities. There's a lot of learning and there's a lot of time. But if you are building businesses, one of the biggest challenges we know is to try and balance, okay, an accelerator program's great and it gives me lots of learning, but I also have the day job. So we've added in those self-study weeks and those one-to-one weeks where you get those breathers, but also keep in mind those exciting busy weeks at the end of each block in Aberdeen, the energy capital of Europe, they say, and hopefully the home of GB Energy in the UK as well. But also that funding week in London as well, where you get access to a great network of investors and support in those spaces. So those are big, busy weeks, lots of socials, lots of great activities, but also a key highlight of the program. And we'll come to it later. But for those of you who are worried about the expense of participating in an accelerator program, well, that £50,000, we have allocated a chunk of that you can use to cover travel and accommodation to all of these activities. So lots of key parts of the program, and hopefully capable to take part thanks to the funding as well. So we can go into more questions if you can think of anything further on those areas. But I think it's also important to highlight that while the TechX team are there to support you throughout the whole process, we draw upon hundreds and hundreds of people to help this process. And actually, if I think back to the first days of most accelerator programs, I wish we do need to keep better track, because each individual founder, I'm pretty confident by the end of the accelerator, comes out with over 150 to 200 new connections. That is the lifeblood of startups. The people you know, it's the connections you make, is those who can help you. So throughout last year's program, for example, while there was 12 companies who got matched with 17 mentors, so some companies decided to double up, they actually connected with over 47 different mentors through one-off office hours, through mentor matching introductions, through connections, through board meetings, etc. as well. So they had this great community of expert founders and industry leaders who were supporting and guiding them. Another massive part of what we do at TechX is around this customer discovery engagement with industry. Now, lots of accelerators will challenge you to go and talk to industry. But in energy tech, that's just not easy. You can't knock on the door of some of your customers and try and just get a contact. We work really hard as best we can to make those introductions for you. So we will arrange opportunities for you to interact and engage with your potential companies, and where possible, also arrange tangible meetings that you will have a one-to-one with those individuals to validate your technology. Now, this isn't always about selling, but it'll open the doors to those industry connections, which is such a vital part of developing your technology. We also want to make sure that you have a roadmap post TechX. So that involves getting access to funding. So again, we tangibly make introductions to investors, and a key part of the program is making sure that you are credible and connected with as many investors as possible. So that's through tangible introductions, but also through things like our demo day at the end of the program, where you get to pitch to a great audience of industry and investors. And finally, we also want to make sure that you have the expertise you need to build an energy tech business. So we involve development partners. These are organizations like engineering firms, 3D designers, branding, marketing, video production, IP lawyers, industry funding bodies that can help you develop the technology further. And we also have dozens of delivery partners who run those workshops, provide free one-to-one support. A lot of this is in-kind support to develop your technology. So there's a lot of people that you will get the opportunity to engage with, which I think adds a lot of value to our TechX experience. So You're thinking, amazing. This hopefully sounds exciting, solves some of the problems that you're dealing with. Yes, it's a lot of work, but is it for me? Well, we are quite particular in who we look for. We don't just give away £50,000 to anybody. We have to look for startups that really tick the boxes of what we look for at the Net Zero Technology Centre. So criteria one is around the stage that your technology is at. So that's technology readiness level 3 to 6. So what that really means is 3 is you've started looking at early stage prototyping. You've started building things. It could be small components, it could be mock-ups, it could be a bit of an experiment of a technical component of your business, but it's definitely not a full scale. That's absolutely fine. What we're not looking for is anything earlier, where you haven't started to experiment or build anything or develop anything. It's still just an idea that you're working through. That might be a little bit too early for the TechX program. We're also all the way up to 6. So this is a larger scale prototype. You've maybe simulated it in a relevant environment, but you've maybe not got those big industrial trials yet. And really what we're looking for is technologies that are still moldable. We want to make sure that the connections that you get through the TechX program, the industry introductions, can still help you adapt and build and refine the technology. If your technology is in a relatively well-established state, that it's out in industrial pilot stage and you're a few £1 million deep into pilots, we might not be the best place for you because you're doing pretty great, and the connections that we get will not help you in the way that you need them. So that's the stage we're looking at. We need to support startups that are pre-profit and typically pre-revenue of the technology that we're supporting in particular. Because if you are out there selling technology worth millions and millions of pounds, you might not need us or government funding. So we're looking for those early stage ventures and technologies that are still fresh and developing. And we're also looking for multi-founder teams. So we're looking for, it doesn't need to be full-time, you don't need to have employees, but ideally at least 2 core founders who are working on this business, because it is a busy program and we know it's going to take a lot of resource from your team to participate and to get the most out of it. But beyond that, those functional areas, we also are looking for technologies that meet certain criteria. And these are industrial decarbonization technologies. So we're not particularly used to consumer use cases or domestic use cases. We want to see your technology that can have the largest impact possible. And the 4 areas that we're looking for are CCUS and methane capture. So that includes the actual capture technologies, the infrastructure technologies, and storage. And in that, we're also looking for any digital that can enable the capture of carbon or methane. We're looking at low carbon hydrogen. Again, the production of cleaner and greener hydrogen, but equally the infrastructure, including digital systems and the storage systems that we might need for hydrogen. We're looking for alternative fuels. Again, production and creation of new types of green diesel, e-methanol, other types of new fuels that can decarbonize different industries, but equally the infrastructure, digital systems, and the storage and transportation of those fuels. And finally, renewable energy. We are looking for not just electricity that is renewable, but also heat. So that could be waste heat or cooling or renewable heat and cooling systems. So again, we're looking for the generation of that energy, electrical or thermal. We're looking at the infrastructure, including digital systems for optimization and maintenance, etc. And we're also looking at storage as well. So if you have, in those cases, wind, wave, solar, tidal, that all aligns with that renewable energy category. So if you think your startup fits nicely into one of those areas or is a digital technology that aligns with them, then please feel free to apply. So I think we've got a good sense of what the program involves. Who have we supported in the past, Mariah? What are the types of startups that get benefit out of this TechX process?
Yeah, so every cohort we have a wide variety of startups, both in those technology themes, but also in the stage they are as well. So we've picked out 4 from our 6th cohort that we thought might be of interest to you all. First, we have Airspection. They are a startup based in Glasgow and they were created back in 2022. So they've only been running for a couple of years. So back in 2022, their founder Matthew had been working on the startup and connected with his co-founder Chris to start scaling the company. So they're developing robust drones designed for safer, more reliable offshore infrastructure inspection, initially targeting offshore wind. They've currently just announced that they have received their interest for their first paid trial. So all of that work happening post Accelerator. When they joined us, I think they had a team of around 4 people, and they joined the Accelerator. They had that technical expertise in house, but we're looking at kind of more of that pitching expertise, communicating with investors, and just that kind of publicity piece that you see from when you got onto the Accelerator. So they're a great example of a super early stage company that have come in right at the perfect stage when they're looking to raise investment, looking to connect with industry to kind of validate their technology. Um, and if you're interested in hearing about any of these startups, they're all kind of their stories are all online and on our website too. So that's Matthew and Chris. They joined us, and they would have probably been on a call very similar to this time last year, and they made up our first company on the 6th cohort. Next is Nergio. So they are a company based in Switzerland, and they were looking to kind of access the UK market and do a bit of customer discovery with their UK customers. So they identified TechX as the right route to do this, and 3 of their team members participated in the Accelerator last year. They're developing a novel system design that combines the advantages of fuel cells and diesel generators for sustainable off-grid and backup power solutions. It's a mouthful, but it's an example of what was already a well-established team. I think they had around already 10 employees based in Switzerland, but we're looking to kind of develop their tech here in the UK, grow a UK customer base, and set up shop here in the UK in the future. So identified TechX as the right route to do that. And then we have Module. Did you want to pick up them?
I can do. So we've seen technologies come at all sorts of stages. Module were a freshly born startup when they came and got involved in the program. They were right at that early stage of developing and refining their idea. And their concept was around decarbonizing transport. And actually they started with looking at the shipping industry, but have evolved and started speaking to customers and understanding a little bit more. And they refined it down to looking at batteries in gigantic containers to actually a particular component, which was diesel generators being used for refrigerated containers, and adapted their technology. So Will and Sean, so Will was based in London, Sean was based in Canada. They took part again in last year's program. They came through our TechX Ventures, which is an early part, a sort of pre-accelerator activity where we help develop early stage companies. And again, now they are working with, particularly they've identified the US market in terms of the refrigerated containers as a great opportunity to develop the technology further, and have been able to start building their idea. So they started with not even a logo or a name. I think it was called Battery Reefer on the first day of the program. By the end of the program, they had a brand, they had a clear presentation, they were then starting to speak to investors, and they had a clear roadmap for who they were speaking to as customers. And they started very much at that early stage as well. And a final one that took part in last year's programme was Surrey H2, and this was a spin-out of Surrey University with a novel type of hydrogen technology. So Dan, who actually had a background in investment in other places, began working with this technology to try and look at how it can produce lower, greener, cleaner green hydrogen for the market, and again, took part in the programme and was able to get access to investors, industry, and support. And it shows that example of how university IP can then be developed further through the support of TechX. And I think we had at least a couple in there, Ewan from Southampton as well. Very similar sort of story. So if that aligns to you, then we can connect you with some of these spin-outs who've been through that process as well.
I think it just flags, as we talked about, the variety of technologies that have been through the accelerator, but also the stage of the companies. And a huge thing we hear about the startups that have made it through accelerators is one of the biggest benefits to them is the learning from each other. So you touched upon that, Edward, where Dan from Study H2 had already raised investment in previous companies, so was able to kind of take that expertise and teach it to his fellow pioneers. Irrespection, they had done quite well in navigating the UK grant system, UK support system, so were able to advise Energio on how to navigate that. So lots of learning from pioneer company to each other on the accelerator. And I think that's why our in-person weeks are really, really beneficial to the startups, is they get that one-on-one time with each other and get to build nice relationships and friendships on program as well.
So that tells you a lot about the actual program itself. And in the next half of this session, probably in the next 10 minutes, we're going to deep dive into actually applying and what the program application looks like and some top tips. But if you have any questions about the program itself and what it involves, pop them in the chat just now and we'll answer them, because we do have one from Philip around the TRL you expect companies to be applying at. So you could be at any point between that 3 to 6 range is absolutely fine to apply into the program. Most commonly, we see 3 and 4 is the most typical stage for the startups getting involved. That typically is the stage where they've got a version of a prototype or a small version of the technology in. Sometimes it's a garage, sometimes it's a university lab, sometimes it's a sort of demonstration site. That's often where we see the technology at when they apply, but it can be at any point in that range. I guess the only caveat would be you can definitely apply if you are in TRL6, but if you think you are very well established and probably by February 2025, you're going to be TRL 7, 8, you're going to have a demo, you're going to have a pilot done, you're going to be working with industry. Again, that might end up being a bit too late. It's less from our side and more from your side that you might not get as much benefit from the program if you're at that advanced stage. So broadly, we're looking at that 3 to 6 range for applications, if that's okay. So if people are having questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A function. If not, Mariah, talk us through the process of actually going from today, sounds exciting, to, okay, we're going to apply. What do you have to do?
Well, applications are currently open and they're due to close on the 27th of October. So, for most of you startups on the call today, our biggest piece of advice was start your application this afternoon if you can. If you start your application, it means that you're in the loop with any comms we have around extensions, changes to the application process. So, head to our website and follow the link, will take you to a site called F6S to start your application. The timelines are pretty tight, so we'll go into a bit of detail around how you perfect your application and what we're expecting to see. But we would expect over the next few weeks before that deadline on the 27th of October that you're going to be working hard on perfecting what is a video application. If you submit your application by that deadline, which fingers crossed you all will, we then go into our assessment phase. So your application is reviewed by one of our internal technology experts, and our top 30 applications that make it through that review stage are taken to our industry assessment day. What that looks like is around 30 individuals joining us together to assess our top 30 applications, looking at the impact of the technology, how it's innovative, the team, and why they think it's a great fit for TechX, all points that we ask you to highlight within your video. And from that top 30 applications, we take 10 that make it onto the Accelerator, which is due to start on the 3rd of February and will close on our final week around the 6th of June, with our demo day taking place the week before that. We would flag that typically each year we see around 200 applications to the Accelerator, so it is quite a competitive process. But the fact you're on this call today, you're hearing a bit about how to perfect your application and what we're expecting to see, puts you kind of above the rest in terms of your likeliness to succeed with the application. So how do you start it? Well, as I said, you head to our NZTC website, you head to the TechX section, and on that section, there's lots of advice or lots of guidance that we'll probably touch upon today around how to perfect your application. We ask you to follow the sign up and start your application link to F6S, which is our online application site. And it will take you to our application form where there are lots of lovely questions about the startup, just to ensure that you are eligible for the funding. But the thing that we do assess is your video and supporting deck. And what that looks like is a 5-minute video we ask you to record all around your technology and why it is innovative, the technology impact, looking at both your customers and how your technology can impact reduction in GHG emissions, your team and why you're the right people to drive this technology forward, but also any gaps you've identified in your team. It could be that you're just 2 founders at the moment, but you've identified that you need to bring someone commercial on or somebody with that deep tech focus. And finally, that why TechX piece. So why you think TechX is the right fit for you, both in terms of Accelerator, but that funding piece as well. So in terms of the Accelerator, why do you want to participate in the program? There's loads of other accelerators out there, loads of other funding routes. Why do you think that TechX is the right fit for you, and how do you think you're going to benefit? But also that UK impact piece. So how do you think you're going to give back to the UK economy? And if that wasn't difficult enough, it's a lot to fit into 5 minutes. And we also ask that you submit a 5-page deck to support with the assessment of your application. And we're not making it too difficult for you, because on our website and as part of the SXF application, you'll see we flag the key questions we want you to answer within those themes. So we've almost created a mock deck script template for you. What we would suggest is you pull all these videos and these questions, should I say, you write your answers, and that's you got your script ready. Our assessors will be using these questions we've highlighted to score your application, so it's really, really important that you're ticking them off and ensuring that you're answering them all within your videos. What I would flag, and we'll go into in a few seconds, is it's a lot to fit into 5 minutes, and we completely understand that, so you need to be clever with your videos. What can you show visually to help answer these questions? What can you do to make your video stand out as well? We see around 200 applications, as we said, the assessors are reviewing a bundle of those, so what can you do to make sure that your video stands out amongst the rest? And if it... Sorry, Edward, were you going to say something there?
No, I think it's, as you can tell, the technology focus is so significant, and we will talk a little bit about it, but it's making sure that it is easy to understand. So while a lot of the assessors that we have, actually all of the assessors in the room will have signed a confidentiality agreement, so you can go into a good amount of detail about the technology, is often a question we get. But also, how technical do we go? Because are these people not energy experts? Can I just go into my gobbledygook, X%, Y jargon, all these different technical terms? Our challenge to you is that there'll be people in there who are an expert in that particular area, but there'll be a lot of assessors who are maybe more expert on the investment or the commercialization side or on the industry overall. So they might not know the technology in and out. So your job is to try and articulate it in a really clear way. Use metaphors, use analogies, use props. We'll talk through all of that in a second as well. But that technology piece is the most important. So you're really looking, as you can see from the minutes there, you know, it's about 3 minutes. We want to know all about the technology and its impact. And then you've got a minute, 2 minutes at the end, 1 minute on the team and 1 minute on why TechX. So you're kind of really focusing your video on making the technology clear, easy to understand, and then giving us the, okay, the technology sounds great. Why are you the team to deliver it? And what are your ambitions? That's where you hopefully will get to by the end of that video.
Perfect. So as we said, it's really important that you make sure that application stands out. Edward and I have sat in many assessment sessions, and we've seen lots of different things that kind of make some of the videos stand out amongst the rest. So what I've done is I've pulled out some key screenshots of some of the videos we've seen from successful applicants in the past that really help demonstrate the tech team and the passion for the technology as well. So first, around making your application stand out, that we've kind of touched upon is showing the technology and how it works. We see lots of people sit and talk to the camera, which is great. We love to see the team, but we also want to make sure that everybody in the assessment room understands how the techs work. A lot of the people will be technical experts, but maybe not in your field. So assume that they have a basic level of understanding, but we really need to see and visualize the technology and the kind of how it works behind the scenes. So anything you can do, it can be drawings on a bit of paper, it can be technical drawings, it can be graphics pulled together on PowerPoint, or it could just be you in the lab chatting through the technology. Anything that you can do to showcase that it's a physical bit of kit, if you've already built it, is really, really awesome. But also hearing the founders chat through the tech and see their passion for the tech always stands out. So you'll see here some examples of some previous applicants' videos that demonstrated how the technology works. Up in the top left-hand side there, we've got a basic graphic that's been pulled together on PowerPoint with some basic animations that describes how the technology works, alongside a recording, which is actually done in the founder's shed, of how they've built out that basic technology initially. Another one on the right hand side there is from a startup that came through last year's accelerator via Forma, and we see Manraj, the founder there, again physically holding the technology that they've produced and the components they've produced, and chatting us through it. So typically, I think founders, they want to revert to what's easy to them. So pull up a PowerPoint and chat through it. But sometimes it's nice to see you in situ in the lab and doing what you enjoy, showing your passion for the technology. So show the tech and how it works. As Edward said, I know you've got to be consider IP and not giving away your secret sauce. And it doesn't have to be Steven Spielberg style films. We understand that not everybody has that capabilities, and if it was of that super kind of high quality videos you were producing, we might start to think, well, how can TechX help them? They're perfect at pitching and they have all the shiny materials already. But anything you can do to showcase it would really be of benefit.
So that's a key chunk of this. The second part is probably then showing the team, because we want to really see what your team looks like and actually ideally hear and see from all of them. So for example, we have Myriad Wind on the top left there. They showed the team all together. They were PhDs across the University of Edinburgh, and they had this idea for multi-rotor wind turbines. And actually what I really like about this is you can see the development of the technology just in this one slide, in that their application video, which has that cardboard model down at the bottom of the screen, actually on the far left, you can see faded in the background is Adam pitching at our demo day, and a big, beautiful 3D render of the technology that's been developed in the months through TechX. So that shows how TechX can help, but this video also shows how they were able to talk and introduce each other more as a team. And then on the right-hand side, we have the wonderful Jonathan from Frontier Robotics and his team, including Joshua there on the screen. And their video is very amusing, so they're not in the same shop together, but they did some very clever things where they were able to kind of cut to each other, show a bit of personality. So I think Joshua's title there is the fixer of everything. Jonathan was on the beach at one point, I'm sure, kind of telling a little bit more about how he loves the sea and how they all have titles that are CEO. It injects a little bit of humor. It's a lot of personality into it, but equally it gets across the team's credibility. What we're looking for in the team is, yes, we want to see a little bit about your experience, but it doesn't have to be a CV. So a lot of the videos we see are often a recording in front of a Zoom or a PowerPoint slide, which has a bunch of headshots and then a bunch of logos of universities. And then one person typically narrates over it very dryly and says, this is Professor so-and-so. They've had 25 years in industry experience. They published a paper in this, that, or the other. They've worked in this place. Next to them is our chief engineer. It's fine. It gets the credibility of the team. That's useful, but it doesn't show us the enthusiasm. It doesn't stand out from the rest of the applications. Whereas the ones where we see the team interacting, where they're interviewing each other, where they show a bit of life to what they're doing, where they work together in the lab and they're saying, here's the guy who fixes things. Here's the person who came up with the idea after all. They've got all of this experience. It adds a lot of energy to that video, and it's only a minute, but have a think about how we can show your team as best as possible. And you can include advisors and other elements to that as well.
And then final piece of advice would be just to have fun with it. You can sometimes get too bogged down in the technical detail and run out of time to nod to the team or talk about that why TechX piece. So sit down, write it all down, and think, what are the tiny little elements you could introduce to make it a little bit funner and stand out? Two examples we've got here. One is first from a company called Pulsate, who came through our third cohort, and they filmed it like it was an episode of Mastermind, and their technology was their specialist subject. And super easy way for two people that maybe weren't too comfortable around presenting and chatting to a camera to do something a bit different, stand out, just by kind of one asking the questions, another one answering, and including a little graphic in the corner that was their score counter. Super easy to do, made them stand out amongst the loads of other applications that were reviewed on that day. And a final there from wastewater fuels, which came through our fifth cohort. We heard from the team them all talk about their expertise, and the final 10 seconds of their clip was their founder hitchhiking to Aberdeen. A little thing that at the end made all the assessors giggle, and made them kind of remember their application. So anything you can do to show your personality, you've got to think about these assessors that are reviewing your applications, us as a TechX team. We want to see your excitement for TechX and being a part of TechX. So things like that that make it clear that you filmed these videos specifically for your TechX application, really, really stand out. I know that lots of people have kind of standard videos that maybe cover some of these criteria we've highlighted, and the easy thing to do would just be to submit that video. But then you're missing that why TechX piece typically, and it makes us think, well, maybe they've not highlighted this accelerator as a specific fit for them. Um, so that would be the last bit of advice. We know it's easier said than done thinking of these little ideas, but I think that hitchhiking to Aberdeen, it was 10 seconds at the end of the video. It was easy to squeeze in, but it made the assessors remember their application.
And I guess this is the first year that you can use your chat GBTs, your co-pilots to come up with these ideas. So use that as your brainstorming idea of interesting ways or metaphors. Put in your technology description with all your jargon and ask chat GBT to explain it in the way that a 5-year-old would understand, or try and ask for metaphors. Now, we're not expecting complete AI submissions, but you've got these tools that maybe our previous applicants didn't have to help you do this in a quicker period than you had before. You do only have about 2 weeks left to get the application in, so the more you can think through this quickly, the better. So we're going to go into questions in just a second. There's a couple come in the chat, but please fire more in and we will get the chance to go into more details. And our final point before we go into questions is a couple of places you can go to get support and top tips. So Mariah, talk us through the top tips for standing out and getting your application in.
So number one is do your research. Make sure you reviewed all of the resources available on the NZTC website around perfecting your application. Have a little look into previous alumni on the Accelerator as well and how they've grown, and can you refer to any of them or any of our industry partners in your video? And I guess around quite a lot of those questions that we ask you to quantify. So quantify the problem, quantify your impact. So anything you can do to show the scale of the problem your technology is solving would really benefit the application. Number two, I've said it, we'll say it again at the end, start your application now. The deadline is coming in very, very quickly. And it might not be until you start that application that you realise, oh goodness, that's not a question we can answer easily. We need to do a bit of research. So making sure that you're aware of all of those questions we ask within the application form, but also we ask you to tick off within your video as well. Number three, stand out. We've talked about it already. Doing those videos, putting a bit of passion into them and having fun with them would really be recommended. Knowing the timeline as well. As I said, applications are due to close on the 27th of October, but if there's going to be any change to that, once you've started your application, you're added to our applicant database, so we will keep you in the loop with any changes. And reading those questions carefully, and once you've filmed your video, going back through it and making sure you've ticked and answered each of those. Because as we said, the assessors will be using the questions to assess your video. So if you've missed one out and not answered it, consider it 1 point off your application score. So making sure that you're kind of ticking them all off and answering them correctly. And finally, get in touch. We've got the Q&A here today, so if there's any questions you have at all, pop them in and Edward and I will do our best to answer them. But if after this call you have further or ones that you kind of don't want to pop into the chat, just reach out to Edward and I. We're here to help. That's our role. We don't assess any of the applications, so we can review your video scripts. We can give you steer on kind of an idea you might have for a video, anything like that. That's what Edward and I are here for. It could be that you have further questions about the accelerator itself and whether it's a fit for you, anything like that. Let us know. I think we've got some questions in the chat, Ed, so we can go through them all. First, we have one from Andrew. So he's saying thanks for the meeting. Are decarbonisation technologies within scope? We're working on a heavy industry / machinery electrification project. So do we think they're in scope?
Always slightly technical one without knowing all the details. So it sounds like if there's an electrification project, it could be in the renewables side of things. We are looking broadly, decarbonisation is what we're looking for, and it is industrial technologies, but it's often very energy focused. So in renewables, we have seen things like heat in the waste heat area, waste heat recovery, where we've had industrial technologies that are things like industrial heat pumps, for example, they've got onto it. We've had things like robotics and drones to reduce and decarbonize things like offshore inspections, which I guess is an enabling technology rather than the actual generation technology itself. So without knowing too much detail, it might, but it has to. There's two questions in this side of things. I guess, are we the right partner for you in terms of our network is very energy industry heavy? So if this is the type of heavy industry machinery that client bases in the typical energy industry would use, then possibly a good fit. If your ideal customer is going to be things like, say it's a farming piece of equipment or something that would be used in food and drink manufacturing or used in steel making, for example, yes, the energy side of things, if there's a component of the technology that's, applicable to lots of elements, maybe, but we might not be the best people to help because we're just not in that space quite yet. So get in touch, but there's definitely potential for it to align probably with the renewables or depending on the kind of use case, there might be other areas as well. I think I saw one up there from Saravana Kumar, Mariah, which was around if you're not a company yet and the company isn't incorporated, can you participate and apply, Mariah?
You can apply to the accelerator, but if you were successful in gaining a place, we would expect you to incorporate a UK company and have a UK bank account set up prior to the accelerator starting. Um, Although, if you were successful, TechX can help with that. We can connect you with some of our wonderful banking and legal partners to aid the startup with that company creation piece.
Excellent. So I saw one, I think from Thanos, is it around? So if a company that's been around for several years, can they apply with a new project that is TRL3 and fits the criteria if it's pre-revenue stage and the technology will enable continuous long-term remote carbon storage? So it sounds like that's a yes in some cases. I guess the challenge is around, is it a new entity? Is it a new kind of startup? We have supported technologies or startups in the past where the technology is pre-revenue and pre-commercial and the technology is early stage, but the company has done maybe consulting or other engineering works, and that's not an area for them. So I believe, yes, we've seen that in the past. The caveat would be if, our finance team will obviously do due diligence. This is government funding. So our challenge is to make sure that we're making good investments into technology. If the rest of the work that the business has done has been other very similar technologies or other, kind of key business areas that are linked and they're very profitable and very successful, it might be that, yes, technically you're eligible, but are you the best recipient of that funding in some sort of senses? But yes, if it's a new piece of technology that's at the early stages of TRL and fits the criteria, then yes, you should in theory be able to apply. Excellent.
Perfect.
A similar one, Mariah, do you want to take one from Philip? So what if part of the solution is at TRL5 and part is earlier? How does that work?
It's dependent on a case by case basis, but typically we'd say you were still in scope to apply. We've seen that happen in the accelerator before, where a startup may have developed the hardware element, but it's very dependent on a software component that needs to kind of dial in, and that hadn't been developed yet. So yes, you would still be in scope to apply to the accelerator on that one. Perfect.
Excellent.
What else do we have? One from Caroline Edward. So they're working with an inventor who is based in the US, but they have an agreement to be the developer in the UK. Can they still apply even though the inventor is based in the US?
Interesting one. This one gets lovely and legal and complicated, I would imagine. So in theory, yes, but one of our criteria is that UK entity, the new company, needs to have permission to use the intellectual property that it's based on. So you will need to try and get some sort of license agreement or some connection with the core intellectual property based in the US. We're open to startups all around the world, so even the US company could apply and participate if they sort of meet the criteria, but they would have to set up that UK sort of branch of their business with a UK company and a UK bank account before the program starts. So that would be sort of January, February next year if accepted. But if you were then to set up the UK entity, there does need to be some link between the two companies that allows the UK company to access the intellectual property. Otherwise, the UK company is savagely quite valueless if it doesn't have rights to use that technology or any legal paperwork to allow it. So yes, absolutely can still apply. The US entity can technically apply as well if they want to, if it's small enough and early stage too. But if there's more questions, then just let us know on that side of things as well. And I think another one from Philip, does it matter if we have funded similar technologies in the past?
No, it does not. So we've seen quite similar technologies come through the accelerator and supported technologies that are in the space, same space throughout the centre as well. So no, it wouldn't limit us to supporting a technology if it was a direct competitor of one that we'd seen through the accelerator already. As long as it falls into our technology themes, as those are the gaps we've identified for tech development within the industry, you would still be in scope to apply.
And actually, even last year, we had somewhat similar technologies on the same cohort. And that presented us with an interesting challenge because often accelerators are very collaborative. We get you brainstorming and coming up with ideas together. But actually, when you have two technologies with similar development stages, coming up with brand new ideas and customer introductions on the same cohort, we had to try and be careful to make sure. And we will allow for that. It doesn't happen that often, but we understand that there's similar areas that you might be working in. Okay, so Mafaz, I think we've got scope, enabling scaled battery recycling via battery discharge technology and battery diagnostics for second life. Do we fit into the scope? Interesting, there does have to be novel technology. There has to be something that your company has invented. It could be the system, it could be the process, it could be the design, but there has to be something unique to you. So if you're a service provider, so if other companies have novel battery technologies and you're getting equipment that is widely available and you're conducting that battery recycling process that is not necessarily new, then that probably isn't a fit. But actually, if you have this scaled battery recycling, if it's about the design of the system, that it's smaller and you've got this discharge technology, I think that would fit in the energy storage category. Because if you're able to help them with that second life, I think that seems like it would be a good fit. And maybe Mariah could take this one. Are there limitations on the grant and is it paid in arrears?
So a great question. So typically, the grant is available as a repayable grant, as we flagged. So that's £50,000 per startup. And assuming you've signed your pioneer agreement and ticked all the boxes in terms of onboarding your startup onto the accelerator, the £50,000 is available to the startup from day one of the accelerator, so the start of February. And what that looks like is we hold on to the funding and you draw it down on a case by case basis. There's 10K upfront that's available as what we call our participation or founder payment that's paid to the startup, and that can be used for your time spent traveling during the accelerator and any sundry expenses. So that's paid directly to your business bank account, and we don't require evidence for that. And that's an optional, by the way. The rest of the funding is available on a case by case basis. We like you to see evidence that is supporting the development of both the technology and the business. There's around 20K available for the hire of new personnel into the company. So whether that be a part-time employee, somebody for around 6 months, and you have a little bit of paperwork to do to spend that 20K for the hire of new personnel. And the rest is available, as we said, to support that tech development and business growth piece. How it works is we don't expect you to have the cash to pay your suppliers in your bank. So we kind of assume that you need the cash flow from TechX to pay suppliers. So you evidence spend with suppliers, typically via an invoice, and you submit what's called a demand for payment, which is an invoice from your company to NZTC. And then we aim to pay that funding out to you within 2 weeks so that you can pay your suppliers directly from your TechX funding. So So typically with a lot of grant funding, you submit the claims every quarter, so you have to pay the cash up front and then the grant funders reimburse you for that. We're slightly different where we can pay you kind of within 2 weeks of you submitting a demand for payment, assuming that everything's correct and in line, all the paperwork's correct, for you to pay your suppliers directly with your TechX funding. As I said, most of the funding is available as a repayable grant. It's also available as an ASA, depending on which is most attractive to your startup. But post event, we're going to send out some useful links, and one of those is our funding terms that goes into all the T's and C's around the funding, what those trigger points look like for the payment, and what the ASA process looks like if you were wanting to opt for that.
Just to add a little bit of color to that in terms of the repayment piece, is that, as I say, Net Zero Technology Centre is not for profit. So there's always a window with this funding. So I think it's the first 2 years where there's no triggers. We're not going to be calling for anything back. But the whole purpose of repayment is to support future startups. So once your company gets to a scale of success, so if your company fails or is unsuccessful, then there's no obligation to repay the funding. If your company is achieving significant success in the 10 years following the program, so raises in the millions, post-tax profits, profit in the millions, then there's a repayment to say, well, once you're financially in a position that 50K is not a big significant sum, then that's when that repayment goes, and it helps future generations of the program as well. So if you want more detail, as Mariah says, it's on there. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so we're gonna have to rattle through them. So we had a question from Andre clarifying incorporation. So yes, if you're incorporated in Denmark, you will need to set up a UK branch office and UK bank account, but you don't need to do that until January 2025 or December, January, once accepted to the program, and you don't need that to apply, and we can support you through that process as well. Mariah, maybe one. Iman, we're a UK university startup focusing on net zero, early stage. We need to do our pilot project in a regulatory sandbox to start earning. Can we still apply for your application? Sounds like a yes.
Yeah, yes. We'd maybe need some more info around kind of what stage you are at now, and what those next few months look like to do your kind of testing. So maybe that's one where you reach out to the TechX team, we get a bit more information around the tech developing, and we can say if it's a clear yes or a no.
Fantastic. Another one came in there. So responding to Caroline's question from before. So even if it's not a full physical proof of concept, even some of the CAD drawings or the models or designs, we're comfortable with that being late enough. It's really the really early stage stuff where you're not even sure what the technology really is yet. You're just still, brainstorming ideas. That's a bit too early. But if you've started planning things out, doing engineering drawings, building designs, and you haven't quite got to full physical yet, I think that's still an appropriate stage. We do have some digital startups that might still be doing wireframes at that stage. That's still a suitable point of view. And our intention is that the program will be running again next year. But you never know. We've always got to clarify these things. We change things all the time. So best thing to do is to try and apply through this process. You will also, if you get to that late stage part of the application process, even if not successful, or even if you're worried you're too early or you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle yet, you will get feedback from industry, and your technology will get exposure to a great industry audience. So sometimes it's a lot of work putting these applications in, but we will try our best to make sure that we give you that feedback and advice that can help you develop it further. And I think we had Mariana there. Can you clarify some of the industrial applications or industries you'd be interested in? Would these include heavy industry or small scale commercial applications like EV charging? So heavy industry, heavy goods transportation, energy use for large, the energy input or hydrogen or alternative fuels for these things. So even breweries, for example, waste heat recovery, that's good. So if it's, looking at the energy mix of these big industrial organizations, then that's great. Things like domestic applications, small scale EV, that's not our specialism. So those would not be eligible for the process. We are very much looking at where the biggest mix of the energy needs are for the UK energy grid and industry, and trying to decarbonise that is our priority. But if you have any questions about your particular technology, then please feel free to get in touch as well. We have maybe one last question, I think, from you in there. It must be a novel clean energy technology which is fully owned by the startup, licensing IP from a university. This is okay. Yes, that is absolutely okay. So the main point there is that the startup entity that takes part in TechX has access to the IP. So that could be a licensing agreement, that could be transfer, but it's very common for spinouts for the IP to still be held with the university, and that's still absolutely eligible. As long as the startup can progress and develop that IP, then that's absolutely great. So I think we are out of time now. So thank you all so much for your time. Mariah, where can they get more information and support if they are looking for it?
You head to our website, everything that we've talked about today is there. We are going to be sending out a post-event email that has lots of useful links in it as well. You will also find our applicant handbook available for download on our website that goes into that video criteria and those top tips we chatted around. But as I said, reach out to Edward and I. We'll pop our contact details within that post-event email as well, so you all know how to contact us.
Thank you so much. Good luck with your applications. You have less than 2 weeks to go, and hopefully £50,000 will be yours in no time soon. Good luck, and we will see you in the programme.
Good luck all. Thank you.